Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and today's episode is cut from another podcast of which I am the co-host, The Soul of Enterprise, which is also sponsored by Sage. The Soul of Enterprise is dedicated to belief that business has a spiritual, though not necessarily religious, component. I hope you enjoy this excerpt. If you do, please visit www.thesoulofenterprise.com for more. We are talking today with Charles Cooke. And Charles, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a speech that you gave in Utah about why we need weirdos. And just a quote from the speech, I love this quote: "Excluding people who are different will exclude people who make a difference." Talk about that.
I think that we are at real risk of trying to straighten the crooked tree of humanity, and in so doing excluding or blunting the sort of people who actually make great strides in our society. Part of what I was talking about was a general conformity that I see creeping in that will discourage the weirdos and the oddballs from making a difference. And part of it was this rise of human resources as the most important department within many companies, when really they should be there in a facilitating role. And what I pointed out was, if you look at the British Empire, so many of the people who did great work were certifiable. And if not certifiable, was socially strange. Look at our elite class now, the people who are there because they deserve to be, not because they've learned how to climb the ladder. Elon Musk, is that guy normal? No. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. When I said this in the speech, Steve Jobs objectively was actually kind of an ass. But he was also brilliant. And we have to decide as a culture, what do we care more about? Do we think that some of Steve Jobs' behavior should have disqualified him from the rest of the stuff that he did? And I don't think it should. Now, some of this conversation gets a little bit unpleasant because you turn to people who actually had genuinely abhorrent views. Henry Ford, for example, clearly anti-Semitic, ran or tried to run an anti-Semitic publication out of his headquarters at Ford. But I don't want to live in a country in which Henry Ford didn't do what he did. And so what I was really calling for was a greater tolerance and understanding of people who are different, and in some cases actually objectively unpleasant, on the understanding that you're unlikely to find the people who invent and think and revise, you're unlikely to find in them the Boy Scout that you hope to be the avatar for modern society. It's just not realistic. So often, the thing that makes somebody so influential or so important or such an out-of-the-box thinker is also what makes them difficult. And if we, one of the examples I gave was Alan Turing, who was a brilliant mathematician who helped win the war by leading the team that decoded the Enigma machine in World War II. Now, Alan Turing was a strange guy. He was probably on the spectrum. He was hyper-literal in some ways. And there was one incident I read that he was told, well, Winston Churchill wants to meet with you in Downing Street. There was a government car waiting for him. But he left the hut that he was working in and he ran to London. Yet you ran to London from Bletchley. Now, what do? You say, well, this guy's a total weirdo, kind of sideline him. And then many, many more people die. So what I was calling for in that speech is a reevaluation of our priorities, so that we value more what people actually do than what they say and think and how they are at parties.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.